There we go. Exclamation mark deck list, so you can look at it. Spicy card of the day is, I should probably rename that. Spicy card of the day is having one Faithless Looting, because I figured many of the flashback cards you don't really want to cast. Like, you want to cast them from your graveyard, but not necessarily from your hand. Prismatic Strands is often pretty clunky in some matchups. And then also you end up just flooding out when you have the Monarch. And usually those are the games that you're winning anyways, but also we have some situational attack cards. Electricity for aggressive matchups with small creatures. Reaping the Graves for controlling matchups. I'll talk more about the Reaping the Graves in a second, but yeah, the Faithless Looting can both help you against flooding out. It's like an honorary cycle land, and I cut a cycle land because I wanted to fit the Bazooka Bock in to support the Reaping the Graves, as well as have more untapped lands in general, because Boros Garrison and Windscarred Crag already put a lot of pressure on you on filling your mana base with tapped lands, and you can't have all your lands come into play tapped, so that's why I no longer have a Forgotten Cave at the moment. And yeah, this kinda fills the role of a cycling land there, though it is card disadvantage, and in some matchups it can be awkward to have this. Also, Faithless Looting's main weakness is that it really opens you up to Spellstarter's Bride. With the sorcery speed draw spell for 1 mana, and it taxes, like, obviously Glinthawk and Thraben Spectre are also weak to Spellstutter, but then you still have red mana open to potentially bolt down the Spellstutter, and here you're spending red mana on a sorcery, and then they can pick that off a lot easier. Especially when you're flashing it back, it's the 3 mana sorcery that they can counter with Spellstutter for 1. But yeah, I wanted to fit this in just to make all the numbers work and synergize with the flashback, not flood out as often, and we will see if it's going to be great or awful. I have no idea yet. I really wanted to make 2 serrated arrows work in the sideboard, but somehow the numbers didn't end up working out, and I decided to go with the less ambitious 3rd Electricity over the 2nd serrated arrows. And like, sure, they hate on similar matchups, but I just wanted my deck to be a little bit leaner and not flood out on expensive 4 mana cards. But yeah, challenge starting. I'll talk more about the deck construction in a little bit. Yeah, church is going to be ringing for a while. I'll just mute myself and then start talking about what's going on here as soon as it stops. But yeah, hand is pretty awesome. Prophetic Prism gives me the red mana that the hand is currently lacking, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay, they're finally stopping. We are facing Tribe. I'm pretty confident in my abilities in this matchup, though it is always scary that you can end up dying. That gush seemed pretty horrendous. Like, usually you only gush on your combo turn or when you're desperately trying to find something, like when you're missing your Tireless Tribe and you need to find it on that turn, otherwise you're dead, or when you're missing your planes and you have Tribe in hand, then you can go for desperate gushs. But in this matchup, your main game plan as the Tribe player is to build up to 5, 6, 7 islands. I'm not even sure if they run 7, but like have all your islands in play and then Giga draws me. And if they set themselves back with Gush, they have less ability to cast Circular Logic and Dispel on the turn that they're trying to go off. And they have less ability to Giga draws me, so then I can be more flexible with my mana and tapping out, because I don't have to fear as many pieces of protection from my opponent. For example, last turn I wanted to develop Glinthawk, but my opponent could have gone Inside Out, Shadow Rift, and one Dispel or Circular Logic as protection, so they could beat one piece of interaction from me, which is why I wanted to have 2 pieces of interaction open out of these. So I had to pass with 2 mana open instead of developing my Glinthawk, and that slowed me down like on building a board, which was unfortunate for me. But now that they're down to only 3 mana next turn, I can basically stop them from comboing with a single piece of interaction. So now I can develop my board. Like, the only card that is really threatening to me then is the one-off Daze that they could have in their deck. If I'm tapping down to a single mana, then Daze punishes me. But I think I'll lead on the Vial, so that they potentially Circular Logic this and then Glinthawk afterwards. Now it's close whether I want to Glinthawk or not. Discarding Prismatic Strands would be great for me as well. With the Faithless Looting, it's a pretty nice interaction. Nice. That sounds pretty intense. Let's see. So I can Looting and put this into the graveyard plus have 1 piece of interaction open, but then I'm still not building a board. Well, I guess with 1 mana I can always stop them from comboing off, because I have Vial open. They would have to Giga Draws my Vial, and then I still have 1 piece of interaction open afterwards. Though bouncing my Prophetic Prism is also pretty awkward, because I'm reducing the amount of red mana I have available, so either of these being bounced is not ideal. But yeah, I do need to put pressure on my opponent a little bit. And next turn I'll set up the Prismatic Strands with Looting, or just stop tapping out for the rest of the game, both of which can work for me. Wait, aren't you tireless if you're walking for 5 minutes? That's pretty tireless to me, right? Thank you for the follow. And yeah, as I said, I can only really die to Daze here. Could have sacked this already to play around Daze, but I felt like it was a little bit too, how do you say, too conservative. Too paranoid is what I was trying to say. Yeah, well, you can recover with the challenge. Wait, did you join the challenge or not? Yourself? I guess if you're in my chat you might not have, because I thought you were planning to play as well. Okay. Yeah, game should be pretty over from here. Like, if they had not gushed and had 4 islands in play, I could still be very scared, because Giga Draws is a huge concern, especially against my very limited amount of red mana. And like, multiple pieces of protection could still be a concern. But here they kind of lock themselves into 2 little mana available, and then protecting the combo just becomes impossible. Okay, sure. Yeah, I think we can make that work next week. Okay. Could have borrowed your tickets by entry if that was the problem, but yeah. playing more games with your deck is always useful, for sure. Then I might need to keep an extra blocker back, just because if they attack with both of these, and I only have one blocker, then they're kinda skipping over the Shadow Rift part of the combo, because they can just combo off on whichever creature is unblocked. So that can be unfortunate for me. And yeah, my low amount of red mana is also pretty unfortunate here. Though I think I'll just keep 2 blockers back, and then 2 pieces of interaction and a Prismatic Strand should easily be good enough, but maybe casting the Prismatic Strands from my hand is actually better, because that gives me 3 pieces of protection this turn. Yeah, probably. I think I can still afford to Prismatic Prism this turn. They're still on a pretty low land count. They're also pretty close to dying to my double Galvanic Blast, but not quite. That makes it tempting to just attack with both of my creatures. Can I really die there? They attack with both, inside out 2 pieces of protection, and so once again I would only die to Daze after that. Like, I block one of them, they inside out the one that is unblocked, and then they have 2 islands left open, presumably. So they can have Dispel and Circular Logic as protection, so they would have 1 counter for my Prismatic Strand, then another one for my Flashback, and then I do have Electricity left over afterwards. So attacking is fine. But then again, not attacking is also fine, because I'm putting them to 12. And then next turn I attack with these 2, put them to 8, and then I'm in lethal range. So I guess there's not really an upside to attacking with an extra creature. Yeah, I'll just pass with this. And yeah, like, you're taxing them, and now when you have the same amount of blockers as they have Tireless Tribe, they need a Shadow Rift. And that costs, like, them having the Shadow Rift is not so difficult with how many cards my opponent has seen, but spending the blue mana on a Shadow Rift is very difficult for my opponent here, because they are on such a low land count. Because every blue mana they spend on their combo turn is another blue mana they can't use to protect their combo. Were there any more questions in chat while I was muted? Yeah, Infinity's question I answered. Searsist I also answered in chat, sure. I have Vintage Paradoxical Storm. Oh, I have not played Vintage Paradoxical Storm. I have the cards lying around, but I never really practiced the deck yet, so yeah, I'm planning to play it a little bit in the future, because it looks very sweet. But yeah, I'm no more an expert on Vintage Paradoxical Storm than any of the MTG Goldfish deck lists would be. I'm just copying a list just as you would, so I can't really give you any expert input. So this turn, do we want to start Galvanic Blasting their face, or no? It's probably bad, because then they just get to Circular Logic with their open mana, and that frees up mana on their combo turn. Though now I'll attack with both and put them to 8, because then these 2 are lethal together. I have enough artifact lands here that I can even sacrifice the Alchemist Vial without worrying about that restricting my mana too much. Though I guess Prismatic Strands helps me against Giga Draws. Like, this Scariest card is still Giga Draws, and I died to that. Well, I guess if they Giga Draws me for 3, then they die to double Galvanic Blast as well, because they would be attacking all 3 of my red sources, and then they don't have protection mana open. So we are pretty well set up against Giga Draws as well. I just have to make sure every turn that I don't die to that after throwing a game away last week to overlooking that, when I think I could have sequenced my plays better to survive against it, and it is the main angle of attack for Tireless Tribe in this matchup, though it seemed like my opponent was not really aware of how much they should focus on that card. It's kind of interesting how my perception of the card has changed a little bit, because when I played Tireless Type, I was very unhappy with Giga Draws and constantly thought it was the worst card in the deck, and you should just not be playing any. And now I have a little bit of an understanding of it being the core card to have in this matchup. I still think it's very narrow and not very good in many matchups. Okay, so we want them to discard their cards first before we take any kind of fight. Could have Alchemist wired one, then this wouldn't have been a possibility, but I still think I will either end up preventing their combo or killing them, or maybe both, with this much interaction, and they didn't Giga Draws me. They need to discard 5 cards, so then they only have 1 card left in their hand. That's pretty hopeless situation. Unless they have Gush, but then can still respond to the Gush. Okay. I guess that allows them to cycle towards the Gush. Still don't, I don't want to respond while they still have the Circular Logic in their hand, because that allows them to both get the discard and interact with me. I want the Circular Logic to be the last card in their hand when they have discarded a sufficient amount of cards. Sure. Like playing into their Circular Logic when the Tireless Type is not yet at lethal damage seems wasteful, because that just gives them the 2-for-1 of pumping power and countering what I'm doing. Okay, 17. Yeah, they're at 1 card, and it's the Circular Logic, so now they're dead. Let's go Electricity with Overload. Then he discards Circular Logic, and I go double Galvanic Blast your face. I could also stop the combo for the rub-ins using Prismatic Strands, but who cares? Let's just win. Okay, nice. And now we get a pretty great sideboard for the matchup. Yeah, I still had 2 more ways of stopping their combo if you don't count the Galvanic Blast, and 5 more ways of stopping their combo if you do. The big downside of this, though, is that I have way too many cards that I like in the matchup. I even considered boarding these out, though when they take their sideboard plan a little bit slower, and I have these cards that can all be good, and the Palace Sentinels are not even awful. I even considered cutting Prismatic Strands, because even though they're super good in the pre-board games, they can be awkward post-board when my opponent is transitioning into Spire Golems and Stormbound Ghasts. Same thing for the Electricity, they're pretty great against the combo specifically, but they don't have a lot of utility outside of that. So that's pretty difficult to figure out. These cards I'm definitely cutting. And then probably at least 1 Palace Sentinels. Journey gets a lot better after sideboard because it hits Stormbound Geist. When do I board in Curfew? Yeah, never. Yeah, I was in a very aggressive mood when I watched Rex to Riches yesterday, and shit talked many people's deck choices when I was in the chat. My chat is a lot more civilized than I was there, though the matches overall were pretty nice, except for the blue-black control players all decided to throw away their matches against Kiln Fiend, and then everyone's like, oh my god, the Kiln Fiend players played so well, when they decided to just have no black sources, no Hydroblast, no Counterspell, keep 2 islands with no blue spells that you can cast and no black source, and then they just played Nivik Cyclops and killed them on turn 4, and the blue-black player still hadn't cast any spells, and then they're like, oh, outplayed, so great. Okay, I'll not board in all the electric gears, I think. It's just going overboard, and maybe just one of the Palace Sentinels, and maybe actually cut these. I want to try it out. Sure. Try this. Like, even the core sanctifiers are not unreasonable when my opponent is boarding in Journey to Nowhere and Spire Golem, then suddenly I have targets for them post-board, though they're still pretty clunky. Yeah, deck choices and play decisions, both of them had some pretty questionable things going on. Though the deck list that I was criticizing for the Arc Lightning was just like an exact copy of what Janice Stone and Kung Fu Trees were playing, though I think they added a second scrap, maybe they cut the Harvest Pyre or something. Okay, I think I'm mulligan. The hand is great, but mana screwed. Okay, this already looks a lot better. Shaman. So with Shaman it should be pretty impossible for me to get combo killed early, though spending like this many cards on Tribe makes me a little bit vulnerable to the alternative plans, but yeah, I think I'll try it. Just resolving this on turn 1, I think I'll even sequence it so that I KC Shaman on turn 1, and then they need Gutshot basically to re-enable their combo. Now I'm playing around. Well, they can Hydroblast it, I guess, once it's on the board. But yeah, resolving it through circular logic already puts a lot of pressure on my opponent to have an answer to my creature, and then I have the time to build up to Serrated Arrows. Yeah, they had quite a few Delver decks as well, but like less than I would have expected. They had a ton in the top 8, but the metagame itself didn't seem to have that many. In Mox Boarding House or whatever it's called. Core Skyfisher and Tortex, what the hell? Yeah, I have no idea what's going on there either. Okay, so they have all their colors, but they use their Ashburns without brainstorming. So not that much wait. Oh, they wanted Spire Golem for the... they wanted third island for the Spire Golem, that makes sense. Might have the planes in hand already, but yeah, they're potentially mana screwing themselves a little bit by doing this. Well, I'm not doing much. Really looking for a Galvanic Blast instead of these Lightning Bolts. Seems like they're just on the MJ list then. I think everyone's on the MJ list now. Attacking, sure. The amount of life that I have lost here doesn't really change the breakpoint. Okay, so it's like MJ's list from a week and a half ago or something. I think he made some changes by now. But yeah, Serrated Arrows is even great against Spire Golem. And they don't really have ways of countering it for 2 mana, I think. They have Hydroblast and Dispel for cheap, and then Circular Logic is pretty expensive. So this should just always resolve, I think. Usually there's no Annul or like Spell Pierce or something. Yeah, now I can even shrink the Spire Golem and just shoot it down with Lightning Bolt or something. Might even take 2 damage if they attack, because I don't want them to have like a random ninja or something in their deck. And I don't feel like the difference between 17 and 18 life should end up mattering in this matchup at all. They just ninja me now before I activate. Oh no, inside out. Ah, I see, I see. Hit me for 4, you say. Interesting, interesting. Do I care then? I might. Yeah, I guess that's worth it. Like, now I'm still preventing just 1 damage, but that looks a lot more desperate for my opponent. And also, like, now if they're going this aggressively because their main combo game plan is shut off, it makes a lot of sense to prevent the damage more aggressively from my side. Pretty nice. So I have all the Stormbound guys covered now, and I'll even just use the Glinthawk to block their Spire Golem and not bother with lightning bolting it yet unless they cast like another. Well, I guess if they cast another Inside Out, it's also 1 toughness creature that dies to serrated arrows. But yeah, just in general, I can start ignoring it for now until I want to go aggressive with my Glinthawk. Yes, Ponder. Seems like a weird land to tap for your Ponder, because you're locking yourself into using the white mana on your turn. And not only the white mana, but like casting something right away instead of using the island, and then you have the flexibility of using a Chancery for hardcast Circular Logic or something. Sure, that dies to my journey. Though my current hand is pretty weak to the Leaf Node Trace, which destroys all enchantments with the same color. I only have 2 journeys in my deck and I drew them both, so that's slightly unfortunate. I think I'm willing to bolt end of turn now to get this off of the board and start going aggressive. If they dispel, then so be it. Sure. Can still bolt again or just attack into it and then shrink it a second time. So I think the serrated arrows counters are pretty valuable. The upside of making that shrink it again play is that it's a lot more mana efficient, but yeah, I think I want to use my bolt. Also allows me to get an extra damage in with the shaman. Arrows against Delver is great whenever you resolve it. That's all I can really say. Like, it's clunky for sure, but it's mind-blowingly good whenever it's on the board. I completely destroyed my round 7 opponent with it last week, so you can check out that VOD if you want to see arrows in action and see like the best case of arrows. And it hasn't come up for me yet that it was ever bad. But yeah, I haven't been playing with it for too long, and there's definitely cases where you're falling behind on the board and then you spend 4 mana on it and they counterspell it or something. It is amazing against spell stutter, yeah. It's also amazing against Quirion Ranger, which we also got, like, I think my 3rd round opponent or something was on elves, and I got to do like 7 or 8 counters off of a single serrated arrows because I Skyfished and Glinthawked it so much that I killed like a Timberwatch, a Quirion Ranger, a Netta Sentinel, and like some Mana Dogs to go with it, maybe even a Well-Wisher or something. Like, completely demolished that opponent. Do I want to just kill it? Or is my serrated arrows counter actually worth holding on to? The upside of just killing it is that I can keep attacking as well as potentially top deck. Yeah, I think I'll just kill it just because it allows me to not run into Circular Logic. My record is 0-0. The tournament just started. We are up 1-0 in games, but I haven't won a match yet. Though neither has anyone else. Well, I guess a few people have. Though this match looks pretty won. Going to 17 doesn't help. Like, 16 and 17 is the same for Tribe. Though I guess Tribe is no longer going to be a concern. Like, there's pretty much 0 chance my opponent tireless tribe combos me with the serrated arrows counter killing the next tribe, and then they still have to hydroblast or gutshot or piracy charm my Kraken shaman and then fight through a journey and all of that. Like, tribe win is going to be pretty impossible. I think if I lose, it's going to be to like more Spire Golems and Stormbound Geists with some counter protection, and then Palace Sentinels on my opponent's side when they have control over the board or something. Seems like a pretty slim chance from my opponent here though. I feel like I have all the tools to really beat them, and if they ever tap out for something, I also get to reset the serrated arrows to make sure that they really can't. Then I have 1 arrow counter for each tireless type they have left in their deck. I have an arrow with your name on it. Okay, well that's going to happen. Though I have to activate it after my upkeep, otherwise I lose the arrows. So I think first main phase I'm going to kill it, and then that stops them from casting Circular Logic again. Unless they protect it, which only keeps it alive for this turn. Daniel Tekken, thank you for your follow. And then I'll just recast it right away because, yeah, they don't have, as we previously discussed, they don't really have ways of countering creatures or artifacts for 1 or 2 mana. Only red spells and instants. Unless my opponent tagged in an annul that was previously not in the list. And then, yeah, once it's resolved, they don't really have great ways of beating the serrated arrows either. Playing around Daze, though MJ's version didn't actually play Daze, but it's kind of free to do. Well, this deck is pretty great for it. You don't have to change a lot, you can just tag in 1 or 2 custody squires, and if you expect to face a lot of grindy matchups, then it's already pretty great. I've definitely played custody squire in Boros Monarch before. It's a little bit hit or miss when it comes to matchups. But yeah, it can be really great. It's strong in the mirror, it's strong against the... Well, mostly it's strong against like mono black or something, because they don't have counter magic but do have a lot of removal. So any kind of non-counter based control deck, which Boros and mono black both are, but even in the counter based matchups you can often resolve it and get a lot of value out of it. Yeah, opponent's pretty screwed. They're just digging through their deck for cards that don't exist, like there's nothing that really solves the situation. I've really gone out of my way to prepare for this matchup. The only thing that I didn't do is we considered adding a Seal of Fire in the main deck, which is kind of the same role as this Kraken Shaman plays, in that it can shoot down a tireless tribe and is a piece of interaction that cannot be interacted with this spell, and also does not get stopped by by Giga Draws. For example, Alchemist Why they can tap down with Giga Draws, and like what else? Well, the serrated arrows doesn't get stopped by the Giga Draws either, because you just kill the tribe before they untap with it. Yeah, I have no idea why opponent's still playing. As I said, there's nothing in their deck that can ever solve the situation, but I guess they want to be persistent for the sake of it. Like, even if there was a Wrath of God or something in the format, they still wouldn't be anywhere close to winning this game. Oh, I guess these are fine, because there is another Wrath of God. I guess if there was like a destroy all non-land permanents or something, they would get their Stormbound guys back and get rid of the serrated arrows. But yeah, pretty hopeless. Maybe I'll misclick and sacrifice all my artifacts, yeah. And that would also kill all of my non-flying creatures, so I guess that's a chance. If I get Mindslavered, maybe they have a chance, but it's not even certain that they do. Just like, I sacrifice this, these two, this, I lose these 4 creatures, but then they're still dead on board to my flyers. So mind slavering me doesn't even solve the situation. Like, I could probably beat Emrakul the Promised End, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, they get to see what you vote, but it's the UI for the vote is pretty bad, and I have had many people in the leaks give me 2 cards on accident. It's especially bad if the people don't, or if your opponent doesn't know how the voting system on Custody Square works, because it in the chat, like if we bring this up, I guess I can't anymore now the match is over. Yeah, you get to vote first, but like it's not clear in the UI. For example, if I have 2 Thraben Inspectors in my graveyard, the chat log is just going to say Pascal 3000 voted Thraben Inspector, and then they might think that they have to guess which one I voted. But if you go over the card, then here in the text box there's like a 1 vote or something in like green. Maybe it's not green, but like there's a text here that says one vote. And in a multiplayer game, then it would add up like 1 vote here, 1 vote there, maybe 2 votes on one of these cards. So if you know how it works, you just scroll over the cards in their graveyard and see which one your opponent has voted on. Maybe blue. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, blue makes sense. All of these abilities that are given are blue. But yeah, you just scroll over to see what they voted on, especially if there's multiple of the same name, and then you click on that and they only get 1 card every time. So it's kind of like, it's just a Gravedigger that also gets artifacts, so you can get like Alchemist Spell back from your graveyard. No, it's not simultaneous. The player that plays the vote card always votes first. Yeah, it would be a lot more like metagaming and a lot more interesting, but the card would also be too powerful, I guess. Yeah, you vote first and then it goes around the table, exactly. Well, in multiplayer it goes around the table, and one-on-one it's you vote and then your opponent votes. But yeah, I definitely had people who didn't understand how it works at all, or didn't understand how it works on Magic Online, and they accidentally gave me 2 cards. Even 2 cards with different names has happened to me, but 2 cards with the same name that were different objects in the graveyard has happened a lot. It is more interesting to play, but it would also likely have to be more expensive than it currently is, because that effect would be pretty busted. Okay, got there. Round 1. Successfully dismantled Tribe, and yeah, with serrated arrows on the board you just feel invincible. That was not particularly close. Also, you can start, like, the point of Spiral Golem is that you can't really Galvanic Blast it all the time. I have sat with a Galvanic Blast in my hand against the Spiral Golem many times, but you still want to hold on to your Galvanic Blast to deal with the Tribe combo, so you don't end up with too little removal.